One is human rights activism. So I'm in charge of 3 foundations. One is human rights and mental health. We are involved in reforming mental health care services in several countries, mainly former Soviet republics, Ukraine, Georgia, also a bit here in Lithuania, Moldova, also Sri Lanka, some African countries. Then I have a foundation which is dealing with human rights violations in Russia, so very busy now. And I have a third foundation which is dealing with the history of Maidan. So we have a big oral history program, interviewing people who were there. And we are working on developing the Museum of Maidan together with Ukrainian partners. And the other side is teaching. So here in Kaunas, in Tbilisi, and in Kiev. Working with people is very nice. I see a lot of shit. And the only way to deal with that is to keep on smiling and with a sense of humor. You know, you have to keep on laughing because otherwise it becomes all very gloomy and grey and black. Humor is, I think, the engine. I have developed a Excel form, which is 1 page, and my whole year is on that page. And so with different types of colors, I show for myself in which country or where I am. So green, for instance, is Lithuania, yellow is the Netherlands, red is all the other countries, blue is holiday. And then there is a line underneath where I can indicate what kind of appointments I have on that day. And then there is a very thin line underneath to indicate which airline company I'm flying with. Because like last year, I flew 160 times. So it's a lot of tickets. And sometimes I need to know whether I bought a ticket. So if in my line there is like UEA, Ukrainian International Airlines, and it's red, then I know that there is a ticket. And in my computer, I have all the tickets in a special folder. So I can then even check extra whether the ticket is actually there. Because I had several times that I wind up at the airport and it turns out that I forgot to buy a ticket. Or I had 2 tickets for the same flight. So I'm trying to keep that organized. And like now, I have my whole year planned till December the 31st. So I need to have a certain number of teaching days, like here in Kaunas, per semester. But the same counts for Tbilisi and the same counts for Kiev. And the semesters are not identical. Like here it starts, say, the 1st of September. Yeah. In Georgia it starts second half of October. Here it ends already at the end of November. In Georgia it ends only at the end of January. So there is a kind of overlap. Yeah. And the overlap period is the worst, because then I'm teaching here 2-3 courses, and in Georgia 2-3 courses, and if things are bad also in Kiev 2-3 courses. Military regime. I know exactly when, what, how, because then there are international conferences where I need to speak. So I have now 15 years, and then I see that it gets worse and worse. And the funny thing is, I have this idea that maybe one day I will make wallpaper out of my, my calendar, so your whole wall is just, appointments. I think with traveling, if you start to think about, that you need to go to the airport and get on the plane and then off the plane, etc., it all becomes very, heavy. For me, it's like a bus. It's a bus, and it has one big advantage. When I'm in the air, nobody can call me. Nobody can SMS me, there are no emails, so there are lots of hours that I can do things. So like for instance, yesterday I was in London. In the morning I flew, and in the evening I came back. It's 2 times 3 hours. I have now on Friday 3 speeches that I need to give in Kiev, all in Russian. So I use the time on the plane to, go over my speeches and to see if all the words I can pronounce normally.
How you cope with unexpected events?
I go crazy. But like this morning, and the first thing that happened, restarted my computer and he refused to start again. So, that happens sometimes, and that's when I really start sweating, because I know this is shit. And then when I came here, I was already kind of on the edge, and then the gate doesn't want to open.
So how you cope with that stress?
I think I have a lot of my mother's genes. A teacher. And she taught till she was 85. Even she had a brain hemorrhage. She was in intensive care, and they decided that she would never be able to speak or eat or whatever again. And she managed to get out completely, and she went back to school. But she had an enormous, energy, just kept on going. And even when she was dying, it took her 5 days to die. So I know I have an overdoses of energy, which is handy. I need to sleep enough, and then I can be relaxed, and even with a lot of pressure, then I can still smile. So household is a problem. I have 3 places, and the problem is how to keep it clean. I just realized I bought a small studio here in Kaunas in order to have a place where I can leave my teaching stuff and my books and stuff like that. And I was there 2 days ago, and I suddenly realized I already had it for 2 years, and not once did I did any house cleaning. In Holland, I have a small kind of wooden house with bamboo. And the worst part is like May, June, when the bamboo comes up, and it can go, 1 meter per day. It comes in places where it should not be, like in the garden of the neighbor. And that is difficult, because then when I'm in Holland, I not only have to do the financial administration of my foundations and get do the laundry and change the suitcases and God knows what, but I also need to run out in order to get the bamboo out of the gardens of my neighbors before they get angry. So what I now do is I try every second month to be away for 2-3 days. Which doesn't mean I don't touch the computer. No, I spend an hour or 2 on doing my emails, and for the rest I just hang around and do nothing. And in the summer, holiday period, I can prepare the courses, I can kind of read. I don't think there is a moment when I don't do anything. No, I love gardening. I have a big garden with trees. I love pine trees. I love driving. Incredibly relaxing, because I cannot touch my computer and hardly use my phone, and it's just sitting there and driving and looking and thinking.
How you plan your time when you was a student?
It was quite different. So I was a student in Amsterdam. I was the last year where there was no limitation on the number of years that you could study. I was all the time busy with organizing campaigns for dissidents in the Soviet Union. I was a courier to the dissident movement, so 4 times a year I went to Moscow. And so actually I was very busy. A period of 2.5 years that I never went to university. And I had a deal with the university. The deal was that I would hardly ever go to a workshop, but for every session that I was not at the workshop, I would write 5 more pages. Mostly my papers were all like 35, 40 pages. And then after the 2.5 years absence, I thought, well, I had then already been studying like 5 years. Let's get over it. And so I condensed 2.5 years into half a year and did all the exams and managed to pass them and just got out of the university.
How do you deal with deadlines?
I am incredibly good in timing. It's not boasting, but like for instance, when I was a small kid, a friend of mine would have a party starting at 5. At 3 o'clock I would already be standing in front of the door. So I'm always early. And that means that if there is a deadline, I make sure that at least a couple of days before the deadline, I'm done. Because, I don't like the stress of doing it at the last moment. And in my work, this is a big problem, because I'm working with a lot of other people, writing project proposals. And the further you go to the east, the easier people get. You have these people who are deadliners. So you can need to submit an application to the European Union, for instance, at 2 o'clock. On the 26th of April, and at 1 o'clock they start trying to put it in the system. And I just, I can't imagine how, because the system can go down and then all the work is for nothing. And I've seen that several times, that people just at the last minute they fail because of the deadline. So I'm strict with deadlines, especially for myself. Like now you send an email, and if you didn't get an answer within 24 hours, you send a repeat message. Then you would, write your letter and put it in the mail. And then, if you would get an answer within a week or 2 weeks, it was fine. No computer, of course. So typewriter. My first mobile telephone was this size, like a brick hanging in your jacket. And for addresses, you had the system, so-called Rolodex. And papers. Yeah. Mountains of papers. I'm very angry that a day has only 24 hours and that there are only 7 days. And I wish I would have had double the days and double the hours. Because, there's so many, life is short.
Yeah.
And there's so incredibly many interesting things. I cannot say no. So when people ask me, I always say yes.
From your time planning experience, maybe you can have some advice?
Well, I think very important is deadlines. Give yourself a different deadline. Because there are always things that at the last moment, go different or go wrong, or your computer breaks down, or your bicycle, or God knows what. So you need to have this flexibility. Sleeping enough hours is important because your brain functions differently. If you're exhausted, then you become much quicker irritated and anxious than if you are relaxed in your head. Working hard is, I think, fantastic because the best thing to prevent dementia is to use your brain optimally. But at the same time, you need to have slots when you just don't do anything. Do something different. Because this change helps your brain to relax a little. And then see all these people managing with systems in the apps in the telephone. What I very much want is to see my whole year. I know what is going to happen in September. I can already see whether I am able to do this. And that helps a lot. Well, the most important is that the time goes so incredibly fast. And you think, well, that's bullshit. It's the same speed. But actually, when you get older, it goes faster. Use your time as much as possible. Try to get as much out of life as possible because, this is it. You have to do it now. And don't regret things. Take risks. Do stupid things. Try things because 10 years from now, it might not be possible anymore. It's your life. It's do whatever you want. You are a free person and use your freedom.